whoever my dad contacted at first, he was like, they just told him what that needed to be done. And then were like, when he said he was going to like get back to them, they were like, why? And then, what do I need to do to get you to sign this? And my dad's like, I'm getting a second opinion. And they were trying to get him not to. And he's just like,
yeah.
I was like, that alone is just like, no, I'm not going to use you at a principle now.
That's so shady.
Yeah. And then he said the other guys, they explained stuff and gave options.
Dude, that is insanely shady.
I don't like when anyone just tells you. It's very rare, unless it's like a single thing, that there's only one option. And even then, there's usually like different quality of parts. Like when you buy fucking tires at the car, for your car, there's 3 options usually.
Right. All right. Welcome to Streaming Screams. I'm Glenn. I am here with Jess.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies. First up today, we've got 2014's As Above, So Below, written by Drew Dowdle and John Eric Dowdle, directed by John Eric Dowdle.
I bet his dad's name is John Dowdle. So they were like, I have to go by my full name so that people know how to look me up correctly.
Either that or he thinks really highly of himself.
Sure.
Or is also like a serial killer.
Sure.
Wait, is it serial killers that we always know all 3 names, or is it assassins? I think it's assassins.
Name one assassin.
John Wilkes Booth.
He's not an assassin.
Well, no, like people who commit assassinations.
Okay.
He assassinated a president. That by definition, he's an assassin.
Okay, I'm thinking like an occupation.
Oh, you mean like special ops and shit?
Yeah, I'm like, name one assassin.
No.
John Wilkes Booth. Okay.
You don't know the names of special ops
killed,
assassins.
JFK?
That was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you remember the name of the guy that Trump hired to pretend to assassinate him? I am actually going to cut that out for like really reals. That joke was for you. I am not wandering into that on the internet right now.
It's Ethan Crumbly.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a stupid name.
Yeah. Oh no, this says somebody else. What the fuck is that? It says the same picture, but this is Thomas Matthew Crooks. Look at that.
Oh, that actually sounds legit. Yeah.
Oh no, Ethan Crumbly is another shooter that Trump's shooter looked up.
Interesting.
All these headlines confusing.
Let's see.
John Lennon's shooter is just Mark David. No, Mark David Chapman. I guess you're right.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
I'm like, because serial killer is the only one I can think of off the top of my head is John Wayne Gacy. But yeah, he does have a middle name. Interesting.
Very interesting.
I mean, they all have middle names, but why?
Yeah, I don't know.
I would say the average person doesn't know my middle name.
Yeah. No, it is weird. I've known about this trend for a while where for some reason assassins always get all 3 names or would-be assassins.
And a lot of them are obsessed with Catcher in the Rye. It has to do with a lot of shootings.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
Okay, honestly, I've never read Catcher in the Rye. Is it about an assassin?
No.
Like, is it about a guy that shoots somebody?
No, I don't think we read it in high school either, but I know it's banned in a lot of places, but it's about a 17-year-old like rebelling.
Okay.
But I don't believe there's any shooting.
Maybe it's subliminal messaging from...
And I think he lays in a field.
I never read it. We didn't have to do it in school.
Yeah, we didn't either.
And, you know...
We had to read The Great Gatsby, which I didn't read, and I still aced the test.
I did read The Great Gatsby. I didn't like it. It also took me like 3 hours to read.
I didn't read it.
It's not very long.
I skipped the day we watched the movie in class and still aced the test because it's not that interesting.
It is not. It is not. I didn't read it fast because I was interested in it. I read it fast because it's short. And when I was in school, I always read the assigned, like I always just plowed through them, which was really funny because it kind of drove my English teachers crazy. We'd do but every Friday it was basically just everybody pull out the assigned book and just read for an hour.
Yeah, but they would have him like read aloud, and I hated that fucking shit. They would have like every kid read like a paragraph and go around the room. I hated that.
Yeah, we didn't do that on Fridays. We would do that for like important passages and stuff.
Hate it. And it was also like, I'm not even that bad at reading, but I always felt bad because there's always like a couple kids that like are not good at reading. And
you could always tell who the dyslexic kid was,
and
and you kind of wanted to choke them, but it wasn't their fault.
And you're like, why are you making them do this every fucking time?
Yeah. What fucking sadistic pleasure do you get out of this? No, so we did that.
And then you could also tell the little goody two-shoes. They were like, oh my God, it's my hair.
It is my time.
Oh my God.
Can I do the next paragraph too? We did that for like important passages during the week, during like discussions and stuff. On Fridays, it was just read the assigned reading to yourself. And I would get in trouble so often because I read a lot. You know, I still enjoy reading, but I don't read nearly as much or as fast. I would basically read the entire book over 2-3 days, maybe, you know, and we'd spend a few weeks on one book. So we'd get to Friday and they'd be like, why are you reading Lord of the Rings or whatever else I was reading? And I'd be like, yeah, I finished the book.
Because then you can't participate in the discussions correctly because you're not supposed to be ahead. So if you're giving commentary knowing the whole story, you're fucking things up, Glenn.
Yeah, well, you know what? The rest of the class should have caught up and been able to read faster. That was the only thing that I ever did in English that irritated my teachers.
Only thing, because you were just a perfect little child otherwise.
Oh, no. My English teachers. I liked English a lot. My only two things that I did well in school at were reading and essays. English, I always breeze by. Math, whole other deal. Anyway. So As Above, So Below, released in 2014, written by Drew Dowdle and John Eric Dowdle, directed by John Eric Dowdle, starring Perdita Weeks as Scarlett Marlowe, an accomplished scholar in search of the Philosopher's Stone, Ben Feldman as George, Scarlett's ex and an Aramaic translator with a hobby for breaking into old buildings to repair things. He's reluctant to work with her after she abandoned him when he got thrown into a Turkish prison for her.
Just a side thing. I think this guy, it was driving me nuts because I think he looks like the guy who plays Charles in Charge.
I don't know if I've ever seen Charles in Charge. Or at least not since I was like a kid.
I haven't really seen it either, but I know what the guy looks like. His name's Scott Baio.
Oh, fuck that guy.
But I thought this George guy looked like him.
That's right.
And it kept bothering me through the movie. You know what I mean?
All I know about Scott Baio is he got his start on, I believe, Happy Days.
Really?
And
he's one of the friends or something?
Something like that.
Is it a spin-off series?
He did end up in a spin-off series.
Doesn't he kind of look like him?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's the eyes.
So, Edwin Hodge as Benji, Scarlett's cameraman and tech specialist. Francois Civil as Papillon, a cataphile, which is a very funny name for catacomb explorer, and the group's guide. Marion Lambert as Susie, Papillon's girlfriend. Ali Mariar as Zed, Papillon's friend. Pablo Nicomedes as La Toupe, which means the mole. Papillon's friend who lived in the Paris catacombs for 5 years until his disappearance down the bad tunnel.
What's interesting is that they do say that his name means the mole. And I don't know if this means any, but Papillon literally means butterfly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I only know that because there's a dog breed named after it that's got big ears and they kind of look like butterfly wings. But I didn't realize it when watching the movie because they don't like spell it out. They're just saying it. But now looking at it, I'm like, wonder if there's a reason that's his name.
I don't know. Hamidreza... God fucking damn it. Hamidreza Javdan as Reza.
We're just apologizing now for any mispronunciation for names.
You know what, man? This isn't like me butchering like Argentinian names. These people are all French. They get no apologies from us.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kidding, kind of. Roger Van Hool.
They don't like us either, so it's okay.
Yeah. Fuck them. Anyway, Roger Van Hool as Scarlett's deceased father. Also a scholar of the Philosopher's Stone. Oh boy.
Azarat?
Samuel Azarat as Danny, George's younger brother who drowned when George was still a child. Kea Blocksage as the curator, and Theo Cholby as the mysterious teenager. There are too many people in this movie. Way too many people.
Well, not really.
There's too many French people in this movie.
That takes
too many French people in this movie. The movie starts out. Scarlett crosses the Iranian border by bus, looking for a piece of Iranian history about to be destroyed due to the demolition of a hidden catacomb. She gives us the government would execute me for this, but they have to catch me first.
Which is so dumb to me on this, because she's like on a public bus. recording this, like just being, and it was after like a woman staring at her. She's just being blatantly obvious. I was like, instantly, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
You know what she's doing? She's being American.
Is she American?
You know what? I don't care. So also,
she's a colonizer. That's
right. That's what she is. She's a colonizer, as illustrated by this whole opening sequence, for sure.
Yeah.
So one thing that's worth noting, this is a found footage movie. So when she's telling us this, she's literally telling us this. Yeah. She goes to Reza's home. He has access to the catacombs and is going to help her. Demolition is set to begin soon, which I don't know. You know, I'm going to come back to that. I have a whole list of fucking complaints about this movie.
There's a lot of good things and there's a lot of bad.
There's a lot of good things in this movie, but there's a lot of it that is so fucking contrived. You know what? I'll just say it right now. She like arrives at the guy's house with like 10 minutes to go. Before demolition begins. That is fucking ridiculous to me. There's other things, but that is the thing that drives me nuts here, is like they're going into these catacombs and he's like, you really gotta hurry. They're about to start blowing shit up. And she's like, it's okay. We can do it. And she's sort of like the avatar of all intrepid treasure hunters who's just gonna risk everybody's life.
Yeah, but they explain that later.
They do, but it's not a satisfactory explanation, in my opinion.
No, but it's an explanation.
It is, but it's, you know, she's a colonizer.
Yeah.
That's her deal. Yeah.
I was like, she reminds me of like Indiana Jones from The Last Crusade.
Except like...
just the way that it's like, as we'll get in further, it's just like every puzzle, she's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, just being like reckless. I'm just like, it's specifically Indiana Jones from The Last Crusade.
Yeah. You know, I haven't watched that in a while, but he did figure out a lot of the puzzles
He's just
real
doing
fast.
rubbings and then going, wait, there's a thing here and over here. Like he's never been there before, but he's like, oh my God.
I really love how he's like probably read this diary a whole bunch of times and is like, the penitent man shall pass. Oh, I got a Neil. And he figures that out at like exactly the right time.
That's exactly what she does through this whole movie.
Yeah. So demolition is about to begin. They have to hide from soldiers and blah, 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 blah. He shows her an inscription on the wall, and like a colonizer, she immediately smashes it.
Gotta be British.
I'm sorry. This fucking colonizer joke is really gonna be a fun one. It might lose us some listeners. So behind the inscription, she finds the Rose Key, a bull statue covered in writing. Sirens start signifying the demolition. Reza runs. Scarlet, does her thing, irrespective of the fact that she's about to get blown up.
Oh yeah, this is another part that already bothers me about the beginning, because she's arguing about how she needs time to get recordings of the inscriptions, while the whole time they're arguing, she could be doing it. And then he leaves, and then she just like scans it over with the cameras. Like, you could have done that while you were arguing.
Okay, so just to be clear, I think we both did actually enjoy this movie.
Yeah, no.
But there's a lot.
I've seen it a few times.
There's a lot to nitpick at it, and we're gonna do that because we are us.
Yeah, but because there's also, this movie is frustrating because there's points that are just so well done, and then there's just points that are just like schlock.
Yeah,
and you're like, how does the juxtaposition? You know what I mean? It's like, how does somebody make these serious, intense scenes and then goes to just like, I don't know who's holding the camera. We're just going to punch this guy in the face and keep going.
Yeah, right. I really love, and we'll get into this, but I really love when like the stone figures attack them and they're just like, and just punch them in the snout. They'll just break apart, like a statue would do.
Yeah. They're like, we got to go. We got to get this block going.
Yeah. We're running out of runtime here. The audience is losing patience. Chop, chop. Woo. So she finishes capturing all of the markings that she needs and narrowly escapes a demolition blast. On her way out, she sees a man hanging from a noose. He appears to be alive, but then the explosion starts and he disappears. We find out that her father was searching for the Philosopher's Stone and she is finishing his work. Reza says that her father's quest was a path to madness. So here's another thing that annoys me. So we haven't gotten to hell yet. We haven't gotten to the magic...
Spoilers!
We haven't gotten to the magic catacombs with the gateway to hell, but she's already seen apparitions just in like this random mine that only has a statue in it.
No, there's lots of things in the movie to imply that everybody who's there was led, like the catacombs are like pushing these people there. It's not just her. There's other
like this, the Iranian catacombs.
No, once they get to Paris, that
Right.
group
So
was all like the catacombs wanted that group.
We'll have to get into that because I personally found this to be weird.
I probably researched this movie too much, but I even have all the steps of how it's the Dante's Inferno and everything.
Oh,
each
beautiful.
step of the circle of hell when they reach it.
We'll totally get into this. We might have to record this part and this one into 2 sessions.
Yeah.
Because I can already tell this is going to be a long one.
Well, okay, these 2 pages are just my notes on the catacombs.
Okay.
I'm just about the case.
Beautiful.
I even told Craven when I was writing all these down, I was like, probably put too much research into the catacombs, but...
Okay, Scarlett is then interviewed by Benji, her cameraman. She tells us that the Philosopher's Stone is able to turn base metals into gold or silver and give eternal life to whoever has it. Benji suggests her father's work led to his mental illness, and she shocks him into shutting up by bluntly bringing up her father's suicide.
I don't think they ever make it clear how long ago that happened.
They don't.
Yeah, because it seems like it's probably recent, because it's obvious she knows Reza through her father.
Yeah.
But it's like, did he know he committed suicide?
Yeah. So I was gonna give this another like paragraph before I got into it, but here's something else that irritates me. Right? So this is a found footage movie.
Our protagonist is just like annoying like as soon as the movie starts.
I mean, she is. But here's sort of the wild thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this was omitted on purpose or if this is like just something that never occurred to the filmmakers or anything like that. We see the man hanging, and it's definitely, it's her father. So we see her dad hanging in this catacombs, and we are seeing this on video, right? This is never mentioned again. Like, she never brings this up.
Yeah, why would she?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe at some point in time, she like rewatched the footage and thought, hey, why is the ghost of my dad fucking hanging in this catacomb? Maybe I shouldn't do this?
No, I think she totally knows she's being irrational and stuff, but she has a goal because of things that are relayed later, and she doesn't give a shit about anything else. Like she's
or anyone else, because seriously, once this happens, I feel like she should have told somebody, but she doesn't. I feel like she, maybe should have had second thoughts, but she clearly doesn't.
Like I said, I think she's very aware of it and doesn't care. Which would be something that probably happened to her father too, or anyone that has like these crazy goals, is that there's a point where you're like, there's no turning back. Yeah. Maybe the Philosopher's Stone quest doesn't lead you to madness. Maybe you already have to be a dickhead to be doing it. No, doesn't Reza or somebody say that? No, somebody says that in the movie. I don't remember, but or is it the George guy that comes up later? Somebody literally says that you have to be crazy to just look for it. Yeah. Like you're already, if you think you're gonna find it. Yeah, this movie's fucking wild. They go to Paris and visit the home of Nicholas Flamel, a 14th century alchemist who supposedly used the Philosopher's Stone. The location is supposedly hidden on symbols on Flamel's gravestone, but they are in Aramaic, so she can't decipher them. They break into a church to find George. George is pissed at her because, she left him to rot in a Turkish prison. When she tells him she found the rose key, he agrees to help her translate, but nothing more. Which he knew he was gonna end up helping her. He knows this bitch. He knows that she'll just drop him in a minute, but he is also crazy, and once he sees evidence, is like, can't let it go. Yeah. Well, I mean... No, as soon as he sees hears that she had it and that she had pictures, he was just like, didn't care anymore. He did, and he was going to stop when they enter the catacombs. Why would you go that far in? Well, anyways, we'll get there. Well, no, because the cop comes, and they were running from the cops. I know, but he never even should have went that far if he was really serious. You know what it is she's fucking crazy, and that crazy pussy, the best pussy. That's what they say. I can tell you from experience. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Just ask Craven. Yeah, no, that is not true. I've been with several crazy women. I've been with several women who are not crazy, and I ditched that shit. No. No. Katie's a delight. You know what? There's no way that I get through this conversation without getting in trouble. Yeah. So I'm just going to cut it for real. But they do still say that crazy pussy is the best pussy. But you're never going to get rid of them. That's a problem. Yeah. Very difficult. Well, anyways.
They go back to Flamel's tomb and look at the grave marker. Trying to translate the code, Scarlet thinks it's his via chemical reaction, so of course she sets it on fire. She turns out to be right.
Yeah, this is all in a museum, too, so how do they get in there?
Was it in a museum? I thought it was no, it's in a church.
Either way, how do they? I guess churches are just open.
I mean, churches are just opened, but I assume because it's like, I would assume that there would be more people in the church.
It was night.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, I've found myself in churches in the night. There's always somebody in there like praying or something. Mm-hmm. Shit, I'm not even into that shit, and I've ended up in one in the middle of the night. Mm. You know, growing up Catholic, there is something weirdly comforting about being in a church sometimes. I don't know if you get this same thing. Really? We both grew up Catholic, and I think we've had somewhat different reactions to it, although I think the commonality is fuck that shit.
Well, you didn't have to go through CCD and all that?
Yeah.
You didn't? Yeah, I don't know.
I went through the whole thing. The part where the Catholicism indoctrination ended for me was after a year where I was actually sent to Catholic school, and I told my parents straight up that if they sent me back, I would kill myself because it was fucking awful. And so they didn't.
Yeah, and that's nice of them.
yeah. You know, my parents did care. I know. I understand why they tried doing that, but it did not work. And that was sort of the end of my time with the church. But as I have told you, that need for religion has never gone away, even though I don't believe in any of that shit. Mm-hmm. So there have been a couple of times when things have gotten rough and I've just like gone and sat in the back of a church and just been like, sure, I'm just going to chill here.
Yeah.
And actually, even when Katie and I went to Germany, we specifically went to a few Catholic churches.
Yeah, that's different. Even when I went to Mexico, I went to a bunch of old churches because they're totally different and they're like old and cool. We even went to one, I forget what it was, but they had like a preserved body in it that you could just like look at. It's just like, huh. Yeah.
I don't remember why. There was one that we went to that I did sort of get that old Jesus-y feeling for a second, lit a candle and all that shit. It's like a drug addiction or alcoholism. You're never quite totally out of it, apparently. Yeah.
Keep that guilt.
Yeah. Got to keep that guilt running.
All right. Now I know we're already rambling a lot. But my tummy's rumbling and I gotta go to the
bathroom. All right. Well.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I was like, before we get into the catacombs.
Do.
Alcohol. And then I was like, nope, it's an energy drink.
No, it's an energy drink. In one of the great mysteries.
I noticed you guys don't even have much beer.
It's not the weekend yet.
I was joking.
I do my beer shopping on Fridays. You know, it's one of life's great baffling mysteries to me. So many energy drinks taste so fucking good, and yet nobody can make a good diet soda for shit. Sorry, so many energy drinks with 0 to 10 calories can taste like just straight up candy, but nobody can make a diet soda that doesn't taste like a butt.
Yeah.
Anyway, fun fact. I'm about to post this into Instagram, I think. Mm-hmm. We are already 40 minutes into the recording session, and we have barely scratched the surface.
Nice.
Using a map, the clues they found, and what knowledge they have about parts of the Paris catacombs that have collapsed, they figure out where the stone should be. Because, of course, it was that easy to figure out. They go on a tour of the catacombs to scout for paths and figure out exactly where they would need to enter. Which they do, but they don't know how to get through. A boy tells them to find Papillon at a nearby nightclub to be their guide, and then he disappears mysteriously. So they go to the nightclub, and while there, a mysterious woman locks eyes with Benji, which, you know, in this case means that she stares directly at the camera. They convince Papillon to come.
Which this is crazy to me already. Like,
okay, another one.
No, but just the club lets them bring in the camera, which is weird. But also that they're talking to this guy about doing something illegal, and he never questions the camera. Doesn't say anything. He's iffy about them, but nothing has to do with the camera and then like recording everything.
Well, he does write his name in all of the illegal places that he breaks into.
Well, he puts Pap. You can't prove plausible deniability. It's not literally a film of
I don't know.
It's like it's a minor thing, but I was just like, why does nobody care? about this.
I don't know. I feel like all of our nitpicks are kind of minor things, but like they add up.
Yeah.
They add up. So they tell him that they are pretty sure there is also treasure there and he can keep half of whatever treasure they find. Papillon leads them to the entrance. George reaffirms that he isn't going with them, but a cop comes charging after them and they all panic and go in, including George. Scarlett tries to apologize to George, but he's real pissed now. Okay, I put a note here myself.
Yeah.
I would never fucking let this woman into my life.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what they all said.
She is the goddamn worst. Just nothing fucking matters but her quest to find this goddamn rock. Making their way through the split paths of the catacombs, they see a group of women singing and performing some kind of occult ritual. Benji notices that one of them is the woman that he saw at the nightclub.
Which I would already turn around. This is a cult of some sort. You don't know what kind of cult. They could just be some free-willing teenagers having fun, or they can be psychos.
Yeah, you know what? They might be about to have an orgy. They might also be about to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, 4 foreigners just wandered into our midst and would make a great sacrifice, and nobody will even find them down here.
So, this would be the first circle of hell. So, okay, the whole reason they go in the catacombs, which I don't think was mentioned, is that...
I gave Jess a look, and I probably should have said, oh?
One of the clues of where the stone was is that it's like an exact certain distance between Earth and hell.
Mm-hmm.
And in Dante's Inferno, hell is down, literally in the ground. So they figured they have to go into a certain depth of the catacombs, is what they're talking about. And so that's how Dante's Inferno gets all connected.
Uh-huh.
And so this would be the first layer or circle of hell, which is limbo. And it's theorized that the cult is like all like the dead that are stuck.
I can see that. Although, you know, if being stuck in limbo means you still get to go to nightclubs to dance, there's worse things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they have ecstasy in limbo, you think?
I don't know. I guess it depends who else is there. And how they died. Do you get all the stuff on you when you die?
Yeah, that's a good question. And is it like one of those things where everything regenerates every day? So like if you die in the catacombs with a baggie of Coke and some Molly, does eternity just sort of rule? The heavy philosophical questions of streaming screams. At a divergent path, Papillon tells them that they will have to crawl over a path of bones. Benji refuses, terrified. Scarlett points out another path and says that it will save them hours, but Papillon refuses. This is the bad path, and anyone who goes that way is never seen again. He once knew, this is the one that we mentioned earlier, where the mole, le type, who used to live down here, went down this path and was never seen again. And George convinces her to just go Papillon's way. Going over the path, Benji gets stuck and starts to freak out.
And see, this scene's really intense.
You know what?
I don't even consider myself a claustrophobic person.
I am kind of claustrophobic. Not in that I'm okay being in relatively tight or even like cozy places, but I really hate to be restrained.
Yeah.
Despite all of the protests that I've been to, and having occasionally been in some of the action, not burning or smashing windows, but you know, somehow I have never been arrested, which I've always been very thankful for, because I think I would have a panic attack once my hands were cuffed or zip tied behind me. I would freak the fuck out.
But the actor does a really good job playing like having a panic attack and freaking out.
Yeah, when I watched this the second time, honestly, I actually had to pause it for a minute and walk away.
Yeah.
He was very convincing in his panic, and it's really not often that movies get to me, but this, I did have to step away for a second, just be like, it's not me, it's not real, I am not trapped in anything, I can move just fine.
Yeah.
So eventually, he does make it through, but his thrashing about causes the tunnel to collapse behind them. Coming out the other side, they find themselves in a reversed version of the room that they were just in. Papillon freaks out because this is not what should be there. The only way they can go through now is through the reverse version of the bad path. And with no other options, they go that route. So they see Papillon's graffiti tag, which causes the group to further break down, since Papillon insists that he's never been in this room. They also find an old piano sitting in the corner, which clearly has no place there. George muses that it's exactly like the one he and his brother used to play on, but notes that the A4 key was broken, so they could never finish the one song that they knew. He then tries to play with it for a second and finds the A4 key is broken, and this is when he starts to realize that something something unnatural is happening. They hear a phone ringing and follow the sound to a phone that's sitting on a table. Scarlett answers it, and the voice on the other end asks her why she won't answer, which seems weird in the moment given that she answered the phone, but will make sense later. They then find the mole, who they are surprised to find is alive, but Papillon notes that he's very different now, which, to be fair, it's one thing to live in the catacombs. If you're like stuck on the bad path for a long time, you'd probably come out a little weird.
Oh, also, all the stuff with the piano and the phone is foreshadowing like what they need to do to get out. It's like they all have something that they regret that they have to like acknowledge.
This is a small thing, and this actually didn't bother me while I was watching the movie, but I was actually just thinking about it today. It feels like every movie where someone accidentally finds himself in hell, not from dying or anything, but just like driving down the wrong highway or invading some French catacombs, like in this movie. There's always this thing where they have to like repent for something they really regret to get out. And just once I would like to see some people who, don't have anything like that trying to find their way out of hell. Like I realize that the whole point of hell is to punish people for their sins.
I would assume that you can't enter hell if you don't have trials.
Sure, but movies aren't real. Somebody should like get stuck in there and be like, why am I stuck in hell? And then have somebody else just be like, I don't know, man, what were you doing with that tunnel? What were you doing with that rock? Were you fucking with it?
Sure.
Just figure out it would be fun to find somebody just have to find their way out physically.
Yeah.
Do something else with their character arc. Anyway, it was just something I was musing on today. It's not a big deal and isn't something that I hold against this movie at all. The mole says that the way out is down and brings them to a well. Everything just seems to be going better and better. They begin rappelling down the well, but Benji's clip snaps and he falls. He's able to stop his fall with the rope, but shreds the shit out of the skin on his hands in doing so. Weird otherworldly stuff keeps happening, like the sound.
When they go down there, I believe is when you also hear like a bunch of like moaning or sounds of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it's supposed to be. They're in layer 2, which is lust. So you're hearing the moaning of the lustful souls.
Does that play into what they find in this area at all?
No, you just hear the sounds.
Okay. Weird otherworldly stuff does keep happening, such as all of the sound becoming muffled and one of their cameras capturing a small child. They go through this series of puzzles to proceed, and again, this chick just sort of knows how to do them.
Yeah. There is, though, they find a room before the treasure. They find a room with a corpse that isn't decayed.
Yeah,
that
the
looks
Templar.
like it's been, the Templar. It looks like it's been there for a really long time. And theory that's the third layer circle of hell. And they're using this to represent gluttony because that is assumed to be the first guy who found the Philosopher's Stone and used it for eternal life.
That's interesting. When you were saying this just now, I was assuming that the idea of gluttony would refer to the Crusades, which were mostly just about taking money from other
originally
places.
Had nothing to do with food.
Right. I think it's actually Dante's Inferno that made it about food on accident.
It's gluttony is actually about like billionaires like taking an overabundance of wealth beyond your means and being like
hedonistic.
Yeah.
You know how I remembered that? Hedonbot from Futurama.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be both. It could be both his eternal life and the fact that the Templars were just, used as armies for greed.
Yeah.
Basically.
I'm just saying in this theory of the representation of the circles of hell.
Yeah. Once they reach their destination, they see a shitload of treasure.
Which would be the fourth circle of hell, which is greed.
This makes sense. This is also when everything really goes to shit. Scarlett sees a wall with another puzzle, and after solving the puzzle, she is supposedly able to take the Philosopher's Stone out of the wall. Well, I guess she is able to take the it gets weird from here. She takes the Philosopher's Stone out of the wall. The rest of the group is all excited because they are rich, but in trying to get to the treasure, they cause the room to collapse. Most of them escape, but they have to drag Susie from the rubble, finding her arm seriously fucked up. Scarlett uses shavings from the stone to heal her, however. Mole is nowhere to be found, and they think that he was killed in the rubble. So we're coming to another thing that sort of irritates me. They find a new tunnel that they have to crawl through with the inscription, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here."
Why does that bother you?
I'm fairly certain that the gateway to hell is not 4 layers deep in hell.
It is, and so the explanation for that...
No, come on. I read Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, it's not that. It's at the riddle of why they went to the catacombs. That layer would be the exact center of Earth to hell.
In Dante's Inferno, or in this theory.
These are circles to hell. They are not hell themselves. Hell is where Satan is.
I thought all 9 circles were in hell.
All these are interpretations. So.
Yeah.
Dante's Inferno does not have a clear interpretation.
Yeah, it's also a poem.
Yeah, exactly.
Written originally in Italian.
But in the movie, it is stated that is the point that they were told to go to. That is the exact middle point between Earth and hell. So it would make sense that that's where it gate.
It is also funny.
I think it's trying to be like there's no turning back at this point.
That would make sense.
So there was no real way for them to turn back before, but
Well,
Or maybe that's where their own trials like seriously start. I don't know. But that's the reason it's there. It's because it is from the movie stated that that's the point.
Give up hope of escape. I do remember reading Dante's Inferno. This is one of those things that makes me wish I spoke another language. Mm-hmm. I would love to read it in the original Italian, although I probably wouldn't have the context. But from what I understand, it is a satire, and in the original context and in the original language, it is funny. It's supposed to be like mocking a lot of people.
That's not why it's called a comedy.
No, I know that's not why it's called a comedy, but that's part of the satire.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Limbo is not funny, what was it, Limbo? The second book.
Oh.
Purgatory?
No, Purgatory. So the Limbo and Purgatory are 2 different things.
No, I know. I'm trying to remember because the Divine Comedy has 3 books. Most people only ever read Inferno. Yeah. But there's the third one is Paradiso. I think it's Paradiso, but it's heaven, basically.
Oh, and then it is probably Purgatory.
The second one, because if Limbo is in hell.
Because Purgatory is after they leave hell.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read either of those. I don't know if they would be humorous, but again, just seeing as how this whole thing is a satire. My understanding is that there would be humor from having all of his political enemies and these other figures down in hell going through like ironic tortures.
Yep.
So they find this new tunnel that they have to crawl through with the inscription, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." And on the other side, they find the exact same room again.
Well, so also the tunnel was full of water that they had to go through.
Is that this tunnel? This was the tunnel that they had to crawl on their bellies.
Oh, and then it's the next one.
There is something else about how entering hell, they will be made to crawl on their bellies. And I got to tell you, this one did not make me as claustrophobic as Benji's freak-out scene, but it was still.
They don't get stuck, and there's not bones like everywhere. Or is there bones? There's still bones.
No, there's no. I don't think there's bones. It's a clean tunnel, but I'm just looking at that and I'm being like, ugh, too tight.
Yeah, I would never be a splunker.
No.
And anytime I hear people dying, I'm like, that's not a tragedy. No, you knew the risk. I think anytime you do something with a high risk factor, if you die, that's not a tragedy. That's
going
you
out
were playing in the odds.
Love.
Yeah, but you're playing the odds, and you know that.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone should risk their lives to save you.
I would still call it a tragedy because the tragic part is for the people that you leave behind, not for you.
I guess.
But no, I don't. Look, man. If I was doing something, it's like doing something like poking at a rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. Are you fucking with it? You should know what you're in for.
That's what you get.
So on the other side of this tunnel, they find the exact same room again, only everything is upside down or reversed again. Susie sees the mole and tries to see if he's okay, but he responds by bashing her head against the ground until she is dead. This scene was pretty good.
There had to be another tunnel before this, or that was the tunnel, because whichever the one they go through where there's a bunch of water, and everyone comes out freaked out, and you hear stuff going on inside of it. So I think, don't they go through the tunnel, and then they go back through the tunnel when they find the reversed room?
Maybe.
Because that is the layer 5, which is wrath. But they go through a tunnel with just water, and you hear like, and like they come out all freaked out.
Yeah.
And they never explain it. They just all come out freaked out, and she's the last one out, and they're all like, Scarlet, and they get her out. And then I think that's because they went back through the tunnel that they had to crawl through.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but wasn't there also that one tunnel that was full of blood and had all the hands?
That's different. That comes later.
I mean, that would make sense for Wrath.
No, because that would already have passed. No.
Okay.
Yeah, and also that's her going back.
That is true.
Yeah, because then when they find the guy, assume that that's the circle 6 and 7 combined, which is hearsay and violence, and that's why Pap's friend, the mole guy, is all attacks him and freaks out.
Boy, this is going to be the most confusing. This is going to be the most confusing recap we've ever done.
I mean, I could have gone over the circles afterwards, I guess, and just went through them real fast.
No, you know what? I like it like this. Hell should be disorienting.
Yeah.
So yeah, he responds by bashing her head against the ground until she's dead. Another pretty intense scene. Scarlet tries to heal her, but the stone can only heal people. It can't revive them. And about this point, the group realizes that everything they are doing is basically a mirror of what's already come before. As the group rappels down yet another well, Benji is startled by the woman he's been seeing everywhere, and he falls down the well and dies.
Which not explained, but that's clearly like his regret. Not everyone's the two people who die.
I mean, this specter is clearly after him specifically.
Yeah, and she has a child.
Is a child with her?
Yeah, she's carrying a child. And he's like flopped over.
I don't know how I missed that she's carrying the child.
Yeah.
Wonder what he did.
Don't know.
Kill the child?
Or beat him?
Or just abandoned him?
No, I don't think so, because that's what the other guy says his thing is later.
Oh,
It'd
yeah,
be weird
yeah.
if they both had the same thing.
That is true. I do like that they don't explain Benji's.
They don't explain Pap's really either.
Who is it that had the brother?
That's George.
Okay. Well, we will get to that. Oh, we're going to get to that right now.
Well, no, it should be Pap first.
That comes next. At least in my notes. You know what? It doesn't matter. This all at this point, the movie is, despite how long it's taking us to get through this, right now the movie is going at a pretty quick pace.
It's chaotic unintentional.
Yeah. There's a lot of shit that happens.
The last 40 minutes of the movie is just shit happening.
Yeah, but
it's
also
all disorienting. And you're just
so disorienting
because they don't know what's going on. And
you don't know what's going on.
So, I think this is also the point, because Benji dies, that there's a lot of points where before they made it very clear this is the camera guy, and this is where it turns into who's doing the camera? What are the camera angles?
Right. Well, I mean, they do switch around between everybody because they're all wearing a camera on their head.
But there's points where it's just wait a minute.
Yeah.
What?
This has gotten chaotic. Throughout this whole movie, I do keep wondering, who actually has the main camera, because everything is synced up to one.
Yeah, but he is the cameraman.
Right. But then after he falls and dies,
that's what I'm saying. Then it starts becoming what? Wait a minute. Who's filming this?
Everything is wild. So they cross another bone pile, and George sees his brother drowning underneath the bones. Scarlet has to make him understand it's not real, which she succeeds in doing. The group then finds a car on fire with someone sitting in it. Papillon recognizes this and screams, "No, it wasn't my fault!"
So this is the guy who told them to find Papillon in the beginning.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
I didn't recognize that. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So there are things to show that the catacombs were seeking out these people.
Okay. Yeah, so he yells, "No, it wasn't my fault," but then he's pulled into the car, which crumples and disappears, leaving his legs sticking out of the ground while the rest of him is presumably stuck in the ground dead.
So this is supposedly Circle 8, which is fraud.
What was the punishment in Circle 8?
Well,
do you remember?
In Canto 19 of Dante, they literally reference the feet of the transgressors sticking out of the ground from their calf to their feet. So hence why he gets sucked into the car and then you just see his feet in the air. Literally part of Dante. Which, I gotta say this. I do find if the layers of hell, they're supposed to be getting worse as you go down. So violence is less worse than fraud.
You mean in terms of the amount of damage that it...
I'm just saying, I'm assuming the layers of hell...
sin is worse, or in terms of
I say
punishment?
Layers, but they're supposed to be circles. But I'm assuming the circles are supposed to be lust. Who cares? It's not that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still bad, but everyone, wants to get freaky every once in a while. But they're supposed to be dead. But then 7 is violence. But 8 is fraud. And I'm just I feel like violence against people should be worse.
Well, it kind of depends, because, if you look at something like the 2008 housing crash, how many fucking families did that put on the street?
Yeah, but I guess.
In all honesty, that was worse than if you just killed
but
somebody.
Is that fraud or is that treachery? Because level 9 is treachery.
I mean, I would call that, by definition, it was fraud.
Sure. I guess.
I think fraudsters just...
But let's say this.
The
what
blood
was
on
worse?
their hands isn't as apparent, but it's definitely more widespread.
What's worse, the housing crisis or the Holocaust?
I mean, the Holocaust.
I'm just saying that's violence.
I think that would be treachery.
Yeah. Sins are confusing.
Yeah.
It's like, which sin am I being punished for? I've done a lot.
Yeah, this was a great idea. Get 2 recovering Catholics in a room to discuss a movie about Dante's Inferno.
Anyways.
They come across a robed figure sitting in a chair and...
which this would be circle 9, treachery, and people assume that's Satan.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, because this is where the stone walls where people are trapped in,
Mm-hmm.
those would be the treacherous.
Bastards.
Also, just being far underground is probably cold.
No, it'd be hot.
Oh, yeah, that's
It'd
true.
be real hot.
Yeah, that's true. There's a point where underground goes from cold to, like, if you're that far.
Yeah. They come across the robed figure and a bunch of stone figures carved into the wall. The robed figure stands up and the stone figures all come to life, attacking them. They are able to kill a number of the stone figures, but George has a big old bite taken out of his neck and is bleeding to death. The stone doesn't work on him, so Scarlet, having absolute godlike knowledge of this stuff, realizes that she has to go back and put the stone back in the wall, which is just really convoluted.
And
so
she speed runs this, which is
Yeah,
hilarious. Right? I'm like, this has been the majority of the movie, and she speed runs back to the treasure room.
Yeah,
this is where she just clocks the stone guy. Like,
she's like, you know what? Fuck all this. Just whoop-ah! Whoop-ah!
It's so funny.
Out my way, bitch!
It's so funny. And then that's where the water tunnel's all blood, and then there's mouths in the ground,
and
all
hands
like
coming out and shit. I mean, it's wild, but that did crack me.
And then it's even
I was
funnier.
laughing when I rewatched this. I was just like, this is like one of those assholes who beats fucking Super Mario Brothers in like 3 minutes flat.
They're like, we got a time limit on this movie.
Yeah,
we
again,
speed run this.
The audience is going to run out of patience if we don't get through this. Half of them are probably getting sick from all the motion.
Yeah. But this is also stupid. So she gets back to the treasure room because she's got to return the fake Philosopher's Stone, because that's what she realizes is that it was a hoax. The Philosopher's Stone wasn't real. Well, that one wasn't.
It was real before they enter hell, but once you enter hell, as above, so below, hence the title, everything changes.
She even says it was meant to trick you. It was a fake stone.
But it worked in healing.
That was part of the tricking. It was meant to trick you.
You know what?
No, this is what the annoying part is, Glenn. You know what the Philosopher's Stone is? When she finds the big gold thing and sees the reflection herself. It is you. Womp womp. It's the power of love was in you all along.
Because the real Philosopher's Stone is the friends we made along the way.
She speed runs back, clocks the stone guy again. I think she does it with the camera this time. It's so funny. But then she heals George because she now is the stone.
It's so ridiculous. People are just going to think that we hate this movie.
No, it's really good at points, but then there's just points where you're like...
maddening, and this is definitely like the adult horror version of the real treasure was inside us all along.
Yeah.
And that's just...
They need to make like a haunted house of this movie.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying. I don't know that I'd be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
I would lose my shit at that path of bones. She puts the wrong stone back, finds that mirror orb, and realizes that she's now the stone, as was just discussed. She then makes amends with a hallucination of her dead father. Apparently, the whole thing with the phone was that he was trying to get a hold of her, and she wasn't answering, and then he killed himself.
And she screened his call. She was like, no.
I'm dealing with it shit. Which, that's gotta fuck you up.
Yeah.
She goes back to George and heals him by placing her hand on his wound and kissing him, because the real power was love. They managed to knock out so many cliches in this one action, but things are still chasing them, so they run until they find another well going downwards. Scarlet, again, just knowing all this shit. I mean, I guess now that she's the Philosopher's Stone.
And also they know they're in the Circles of Hell.
Yeah.
Because in the Circles of Hell, you do have to jump. It's the only way out through hell is to go all the way through. And there's a point where you have to make a leap of faith.
Well, Scarlet tells them that they are in hell and they have to let go of something they feel guilty for. Zed says that he has a kid that he's never talked to. And George blames himself for his brother's drowning, which really shouldn't be surprising if you've watched the movie at this point.
No, but it is sad is that he went to go find help and then he got lost.
Right.
And he's like, my brother died waiting for me to come back. I'm like, that would haunt you.
It would haunt you, but at the end of the day, that is not his fault.
No.
He was doing his best.
Yeah. But they were young kids, and your little brother. You know how it is. You feel like you're supposed to protect them, and
yeah. And that doesn't go away when you grow up either. Annoyingly, you know, it occurred to me that the other day that at some point in time we'll probably need to do Hereditary.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
yeah. I will say this whole part doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't matter because it's just an ending for the movie. But I'm like, you didn't resolve anything. You just said aloud what you did, what you feel bad about.
Oh, come on. You're a recovering Catholic. They confess their sins.
But they didn't even ask for, like...
Hey, man, they don't have time to do...
Like,
they don't have time to...
This is what I feel shitty about. And it's like, yeah, you did it.
Yeah, but, like, you don't have time to do all those Hail Marys before you jump down there. The stone shit's after you. The audience is popping the Dramamine. You gotta, like... you gotta get to it.
Yeah.
So they all confess their bullshit. They jump down together and they hit the bottom and survive. Another dead end? No. Again, Scarlet figures out that there must be an exit on the floor because of the whole as above, so below thing. So they find a manhole cover on the floor and they push it downwards, revealing that the skies above Paris are now below them. They climb out of the manhole with gravity reversing as they do so. And I gotta say, I feel like I would throw up.
Yeah.
Like, that's just got to be the most disorienting thing.
It's like being on the Gravitron.
But, like, worse.
Like standing on it. Don't do that.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've been on the Gravitron. It was a fun ride.
As a kid, sure.
Don't know how it would be now.
Yeah.
They climb out of the manhole with gravity reversing as they do so, and they all hug on the streets of Paris, having escaped. We then see Scarlet being interviewed by Benji. This is sort of the second part of the interview that we saw early in the movie. She says that she isn't doing this for fame or fortune. She wants to find the truth.
Because she wants, it's ultimately about her dad.
Yeah.
But this is my question. Did they escape, or are now they in the mirror world? Because of the, so like every room they ended up in an opposite room.
Right.
So are they actually in their world, or are they in some weird bizarro world?
Really
There's
hard.
no answer.
There is no answer to that.
But that's my thing, is I'm like, I feel like you're not in your world. Now you're in some world where you're the Philosopher's Stone. What's that gonna fucking cause? Like,
who knows?
Yeah.
I feel like this is a point where the filmmakers either didn't think past this, or they were just
I think it's purposely ambiguous.
Or they were just like, you know, people might not.
It's whatever answer you want. Yeah. Also, most people don't just think about movies as much as I do.
And, you know, I realize that it's not like we're getting paid for this, but in a way, we are doing this professionally now.
You gotta get paid first.
Fuck that shit.
That's the definition.
I don't give a shit what the definition is.
The streaming screams. No. Patreon.
One of these days. So I already mentioned that it feels contrived, that she goes into the Iranian catacombs with minutes to spare, and that she's just such colonizer about the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. It's also like...
Oh.
Good.
No, you go ahead, because I'm going to move to something else.
Well, I was just going to say, how old is she? Because she's like, I have all these degrees. I know this many languages. Like, she looks like she's like in her 20s.
She is a real Mary Sue.
Yeah.
And that is actually something that I did have a problem with while watching the movie. And we were joking about it with like how she just knows how to solve all these puzzles.
Yeah.
She's annoying, crazy, and a Mary Sue. It's just the trifecta of irritating people. So here's another thing that I found really contrived and annoying. Mm-hmm. And I hate when shows or books or movies or whatever does this. After translating the tablet from Aramaic, why does it have a metered rhyme in English?
Oh.
It shouldn't sound like a fucking nursery rhyme in English.
Sure.
Have you ever read a translation of a poem that rhymes perfectly, that wasn't like totally...
Well, just, you know, going on Google Translate and having it like translate anything from one language to exact English.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
You know, but I mean, even like making adjustments to make it make sense. You know what? It can rhyme or it can make sense. You don't get both.
Maybe the guy is just that good.
And that is the logic used in a lot of this movie.
Yeah.
But no, that sort of thing always drives me nuts. That's one of those things that
you just don't know what it's like to be passionate about something, Glenn.
Nobody can see this, but I'm currently looking around at like all of the musical shit in this room. I don't think I need to bring up how if we ever find ourselves on the verge of losing this house, I can just sell my record collection and buy a new house. But yeah, that just really felt contrived. I already mentioned the thing about the dad in the catacombs. I think all of my notes there are covered. Who would you recommend this movie to?
Anyone that likes found footage or doesn't like found footage, because it's a decent one, I think. On top of all like the complaints, it's just like I don't know. I think it's mostly well done, and the parts that aren't are mostly laughable.
Yeah, some of them are probably not noticeable, except that you'll notice them having listened to us talk about them. I guess
if you're interested, I mean, it doesn't really have a lot to do with the catacombs, but I guess if you're interested in the Paris catacombs or Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? If you've got some sort of religious proclivities, I could see it. I could see it being your thing. If, like us, you are a recovering Catholic, you might dig it. There's definitely some stuff in there for us. I would recommend it to people who have a strong stomach and don't get motion sickness from cameras.
I don't think it's that bad, but I don't get motion sickness. So
I don't get motion sickness from cameras, but there were certain points where I was looking at this and I'm just like, this shit makes Cloverfield look so fucking measured.
Really?
Yeah. Particularly like the speed running shit at the end.
Well, sure, but
but yeah, there's just a lot of, there's a lot of falling down things and sudden jerks. And anyway, it's a good movie. If you are not totally sick of found footage, I mean, which, found footage hasn't been like that big of a craze for a while, but yeah, I know some people are still burnt out on it. If you're not one of those, this is a pretty good one.
Thank you for listening to Streaming Screams Podcast. You can follow us at our socials at Streaming Screams Pod for Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and SoundCloud.
You can also follow us on TikTok or on the dreaded Twitter/X at ScreamsPod. Thank you again for listening. We hope you're enjoying yourselves. Jessica, are you enjoying yourself?
Absolutely.
All right then, on to the next part of the show.
Whoa.
What's up?
You know the mom, throw mama from the train?
Yeah.
And the Goonies thing? Mm-hmm. That's her mom. And they have the same name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wild.
Good thing she didn't take after her too much. I'm just saying that woman's known for being ugly. That's like what she plays as ugly, mean women in the 80s. Oh, man. What? That's true. That's like specifically what her role was.
I don't even think she's alive anymore.
No, she's dead.
Okay, so the second movie that we're going to do is The Taking of Deborah Logan, released in 2014, written by Adam Robitel and Gavin Heffernans, directed by Adam Robitel, starring Jill Larson as Deborah Logan, an elderly woman suffering from Alzheimer's. She's a former switchboard operator who set up a successful answering service in her home and is reluctant to let her struggles be filmed by a documentary, but they need the money to keep her house. Anne Ramsey as Sarah Logan, Deborah's daughter who is living with and caring for her mother. She's heavily implied to be a lesbian and she is drinking her way through this situation. Then there's the documentary team led by Michelle Ang as Mia Medina. Making this documentary for her thesis project, Mia initially only approaches things on a professional level, but she does develop a friendship with Sarah and grows to care for Deborah and gets a lot more personally involved as the film goes on. Brett Gentile as Gavin, the smartest man in horror, and Jeremy Del Carlos as Lewis. We've got Ryan Catrona as Harris, Deborah's neighbor and friend. He is very hostile to the documentary team. And Bedian as Dr. Nazir, Deborah's doctor, who helps the audience understand what's happening to her. Tanya Bloodsworth as Sheriff Tweed. Julian Taylor as Cara Minetti, a leukemia patient staying in the same hospital as Deborah, and Kevin A. Campbell as Dr. Henry Desjardins. And I gotta tell you, right off the bat, one thing that I think is really funny about this movie, nobody once tells anyone involved in this movie how to pronounce Desjardins. They pronounce it Desjardins the whole time. Henry Desjardins, a local physician who seems to have a connection to the ritualized murders of 4 girls when Sarah was young. We start off with a documentary team arrives at the Logan house for setup and pre-production. Deborah fears being exploited and kind of tries to back out, but Sarah talks her back into it because they need the money for the house. Her fears, however, are kind of justified when she notices the crew filming their private conversation without them knowing. We then see the crew arrive for a proper filming of the documentary about Deborah. In the early days of filming, we learn about her background as a single mom running that switchboard answering service, and we also learn some stuff about Alzheimer's. Deborah shows increasingly strange behavior as filming goes on. For example, she threatens Gavin with a knife for supposedly taking her gardening spade before they find it in the freezer. She also starts eating porcelain figures, and her physician, Dr.
Hummel figures.
What? Hummel figures? What's a Hummel figure?
They're like what people collected before Precious Moments. A lot of old people have them. You know what Precious Moments are?
What are the precious? Not really.
Precious Moments are the ones with like the teardrop eyes. Probably doesn't matter, but I noticed in the movies. I was like, oh, they're Hummel figures.
Yeah, how do you know about this? She's thinking.
It's from another movie, I believe. But the Precious Moments I know because I had some as a kid too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had a fucking. I had like a cross with a little girl praying to it that was a Precious Moments.
So I have heard of Precious Moments, and I know that they generally have some kind of tie to religion.
Not necessarily. They just sometimes do. But no, they're just cute little figures, and they have teardrop eyes. They just have like a way that they look.
Okay. And so the Hummel figures were like the precursor to that?
Yeah, except for they're German. But I feel like they're the same. Like grandmas collected this. Like our parents were more likely to collect like the Precious Moments.
Gotcha. This is definitely what people come to a horror podcast to learn about.
I just noticed, which I was like, oh, they're Hummel figures. But I believe it's another movie or a TV show why I know the Hummel figures.
Right. But yeah, so she's swallowing them. Dr. Nazir tells us that it's normal for people with aggressive Alzheimer's to exhibit these kinds of behaviors and symptoms. She also develops some odd physical symptoms like a scale-like rash. Lewis begins to notice that some of the things happening with Deborah seem like they can't be explained by her disease and might be supernatural in origin. One example is she just sort of magically transports from the floor to the counter at one point. So this is sort of my main beef with this movie. I really love this concept of like, is it possession or is it Alzheimer's? Mm-hmm. What's really causing this? And I would have loved to have seen them kept that question open like longer. I don't think it should have been ambiguous, but maybe make it to the third act before you answer that question. We're like partially through the first act when we see this, and it's like, okay, so it's possession.
Well, but they are trying to like, they are confused by it. And they're like, they even try to explain it because they're like confused because there's no time jump in the camera.
I mean, they're confused by it. I think it would have been better to leave the audience hanging. The question lingers for them a lot longer than it does for us. We can tell immediately when we see that jump. We're like, okay, yeah, this is a supernatural deal.
Sure, I guess.
Honestly, that's my main beef with the movie is I just think that this concept could have been executed a little bit better if they had kept that question open for longer. I don't think they should have left it up to the viewers, discretion on it.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to hang with it for a bit more. One night, the switchboard starts ringing in the middle of the night, and they find a signal coming from line 337, which belonged to Desjardins, Dr. Desjardins, who disappeared after a series of ritual cannibalistic murders of 4 young girls. They also find Deborah at the switchboard one night speaking in French about snakes and sacrifice and stuff. Harris doesn't seem to like what's going on and demands that Sarah get rid of the crew. This will be more important later. After more strange incidents, Sarah asks Deborah about Desjardins. Should I go with the pronunciation that they have in the movie or the actual pronunciation here?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I would just stick to one.
We're going with Desjardins from here on out. After more strange incidents, Sarah asks Deborah about Desjardins. Deborah says that he's not missing, he is dead, and when asked how she knows, she replies, murder.
Dun, dun, dun.
That night, Deborah vomits up a bunch of dirt and earthworms. Gavin suspects that Harris murdered Desjardins, and Deborah helped him cover it up. At about this point, Harris takes a shotgun to the crew's van because he really doesn't want them there. And it took me like 2 watches of this to realize that the reason he doesn't want them there, hopefully they don't find out about the murder.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, I don't know why. I didn't catch that the first time around. So yeah, Harris takes a shotgun to the crew's van after being threatened with a knife, these strange events, and now having his van shot up. Gavin has had enough and he quits. A choice that, in my opinion, makes him smarter than 99% of all horror movie characters, because usually at this point, somebody wants to quit and they get talked back into staying.
Yeah.
They're like, fee gets raised, which he already did once.
Yeah.
Or they're just convinced to stick it out through the goodness of their heart. And he's like, fuck this. I'm out, and we never see him again.
Yeah, well, part of the theme of this movie is just not the Alzheimer's thing, too. Is like the director said that because the focus is mainly on Deborah and the daughter. What's her name again? Laura? Sarah. I'm bad. Terrible. And it's more the focus on them because he didn't want it to feel too exploitative, but the documentary crew is there to point out they literally talk about like whether it's being exploitative. The neighbor talks about it. There's a point where Deborah is like, no, I don't want you guys there. And the main chick of the documentary crew tells a lie about her grandfather having Alzheimer's, being like, oh, this is a personal project to me. And then later the guy who ends up quitting was like, oh, I didn't know that was about that your grandfather. And she's like, no, they just needed a little more pushing so that she wouldn't quit.
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to be a commentary on like exploitative, but also that the movie in itself is kind of by using this topic.
I do really like her character arc where she does go from just being in it about herself to like genuinely
and then she
caring.
gives a shit. Yeah.
She has a really good arc.
Yeah, but that's part of like the questionability of them being there, but he purposely also didn't want them to be the focus.
Yeah.
But he wanted to have that juxtaposition.
But yeah, I do really love that Gavin just bones out, because in just about any other horror movie he would show up again at some point. And the fact that he just goes off and lives whatever life he wants.
Yeah.
Great. So Deborah is hospitalized for her own safety as her behavior becomes more extreme and the occurrences around her get stranger.
Oh, I was going to say, she should have been hospitalized a long time ago. That's one part of that frustrates this movie, is because they do go to the doctors, but yet she pukes up worm and all this stuff. How is she never like institutionalized at some point? Or like not like insanity, because I know she has Alzheimer's, but she is a danger to herself and others.
When she
doesn't she already she bites the guy in the neck at some point? Isn't that before this?
That happens. That comes up soon.
Okay, but
she is already in the hospital when that happens.
Yeah, and she like rips stuff off her arm and shit.
Yeah,
and they just like let her go back home. She rips her neck.
She rips her neck. Did she go home after that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's like, and then she's like puking. She's eating like stuff.
Honestly, she should have been forced into care when she starts eating the figures, which was very early.
Yes, there's lots of stuff that happens early on that I'm just like, it is obvious that her daughter is not able to like care for somebody in this state.
Right.
And I know that sucks, but I feel like when they go to the doctor and yes, they go leave again. And it's like, this just seems like malpractice. I mean, I know like also like when locking somebody is very like complicated and stuff, but she's a clear danger to herself and others.
Well, there is also like, this place does seem to have a small town vibe where everybody knows each other.
I know, but still the doctors.
So I feel like
I'm talking about the doctors.
No. But even like the doctors in a small town, like I could see them being like, yeah, I don't want to force you to do this.
I guess.
That being said, I have a few things to say about the daughter, which we'll get to after the recap.
Yeah.
While hospitalized, Deborah escapes her bed and tries to kidnap Kara, the girl with leukemia. The remaining team meets with an anthropologist, and we find out that Desjardins was trying to recreate an ancient Monacan ritual that would require the sacrifice of 5 girls that had recently started their first period, and they begin to suspect that Deborah is possessed by Desjardins. They learn about another similar case where a mother was possessed by her son and freed after the son's corpse was burned. Kind of the same, the whole going through to an anthropologist and just learning all of this shit was such a weird trope in the 90s and the aughts. I don't think I see it much anymore, but it felt like it was all the time.
When was Sinister?
That might have been the early teens.
But yeah, because they do that in that too.
They do. Okay, yeah, that was the early teens. That was 2012. There's
always just some dude that's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I know what's going on. even when I was younger, I thought that this was such a stupid trope. Like,
yeah.
Not horror related. Definitely a movie made for younger people.
Also,
kind of. When my brother and I saw that Jim Carrey movie, The Mask, they did this. And I was like, they just went and asked some random jabroni with like a doctorate about this mask. And he's like, let me tell you all about it.
Yeah. But isn't this one too, you might have said, but it's like a Native American thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's always the mystical Native Americans.
Yeah, man. That is another trope.
But I'm going to talk to some white dude and he knows all about it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, God. I just realized that kind of like compounds both of those tropes and makes them worse. Yeah. Even supposing they did go to an anthropologist, you would think he would be like, this kind of strikes me as something that might be related to the local tribe around here. Let me send you to one of their higher ups or to a scholar I know in the tribe.
Yeah.
No, we don't need that. We've just got the white guy telling you, Jesus Christ. We have so many people be like, oh, why do you guys hate white people? Talking about colonizers, and then why can't white people know about Native American stuff? Anyway, where were we? Okay. We learn about the similar case where the mother was freed after her son's corpse was burned. So Harris visits Deborah, who begs him to kill her. He tries, but that possession kicks in and the entity stops him by hitting him with a television. And I don't know, I think something else happens. But, he gets dead.
He gets dead.
So on his deathbed, Harris tells Sarah that when she was a child, Deborah found out about Desjardins' plot to sacrifice her to complete this ancient ritual. Deborah found out about it, probably having something to do with her, switchboard answering service, and murdered him. And then they both buried him in the backyard. I guess she stabbed him in the neck with her
trowel
spade.
Yeah.
So I found this interesting. He says that she stabbed him in the neck with the spade, and then they buried him still alive.
Yeah.
I mean, Sure, I guess you can survive a neck wound, but like
for sure.
But I saw the size of that spade.
Yeah,
it should have cut an artery. Yeah,
it'd take a while to dig a hole.
Right?
Like, was the hole already dug?
Maybe. I mean, there's
they planned it. They lured him there. Yes,
and they do mark where the body is.
Yeah, so they probably already had the hole.
Yeah. I guess that would make sense. He's buried in the yard. We've already seen Deborah doing a bunch of gardening and shit, and Harris seems to get anxious whenever the crew is close, blah, blah, blah. So the crew tries to dig up this body, but Deborah has already gotten to it. I guess Deborah, or...
No, because she's been digging there, like, since they've been there. They kept finding her dig.
Oh, yeah, so yeah, it was her.
Yeah.
Well, I guess technically it's Desjardins, or Desjardins.
Yeah.
Desjardins. I don't know why that bothers me so much. Like, just why have a name like that if you don't know how to pronounce it?
Yeah.
Just call him...
Well, because they have shown in the movie that she wasn't constantly possessed.
Right.
There's like a shadow that you keep seeing in the yard, and she's like painting one that keeps getting closer and closer. So I'm assuming like at night he possesses her until he has she's further. I would assume until the Alzheimer's further along that he can control her more. Would be my guess. Something
like that. I mean, one thing that this movie does do well is that they don't necessarily explain everything. Oh, but the stuff that they do explain is just so tropey. Deborah has already gotten to it and moved it to the attic. So the group finds it in the attic. They try to burn the body, but are attacked by snakes, which I don't remember if we mentioned it earlier. This Monacan ritual not only requires girls who are going through their first period, but it also has something to do with snakes and involved, rattlesnake venom and all of that stuff. Interestingly enough, I don't think we see any rattlesnakes in this movie. We see a lot of asps. Do we see rattlesnakes?
I was just going to say, movies are terrible about that. Because even if you rewatch Snakes on a Plane, if you know anything about snakes, they're supposed to be these super venomous snakes. And most of them are fake, but the ones that are real are king snakes, which are super docile and non-venomous. And the first time I even saw that movie, I was just like, that's a king snake. And it's just hanging down. So I'm just saying,
garter snakes.
I think they're just most movies assume that people just don't know anything about snakes.
Well, I mean, but they did have asps, and asps are fucking venomous.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Hey.
Rattlesnakes are probably because CGI wasn't as good at this point. But
this is actually a question that I have. This is supposed to be the Pacific Northwest. Rattlesnakes tend to be more like desert and hot areas. Would they have rattlesnakes up there?
I don't know.
Actually, is it even the Northwest?
We have tons of rattlesnakes around here.
Right. That's what I'm saying, though. Like, this is a climate that has rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
Where they were, I don't think is a climate where rattlesnakes would be.
I don't know.
You know what? I'm not an expert in snakes, so I could be wrong. But I just know that here in sunny California, we got a shit ton of them.
And you shouldn't kill them.
You shouldn't, but if I find one, I still am.
No, don't. Random fact. More and more rattlesnakes are being born without rattles because people keep killing them. Like it was used to be a recessive gene, but because we keep killing the ones with rattles, it's becoming the dominant gene. The rattle is literally there so that you know, like literally evolutionary, they don't want to bite you. They only have so much like venom and stuff, so they're not trying to. The rattle is there to tell you to get the fuck away from them, and we want that rattle there because it tells us to get the fuck away from them. So when you see a rattlesnake and you kill it, just so you know, you're making the ones without rattles become the dominant one, which means more people will get bitten. So don't kill rattlesnakes you find in your yard. Call someone and they will remove it.
Fortunately,
we don't get them.
From what I understand, we don't get them in this neighborhood.
Yeah, we don't get it. They're in the hills. You have to like be more in the direct hills.
Yeah.
But still, I'm just saying, PSA.
Yeah, don't kill rattlesnake.
Or do, and then you're just setting up the future generations like we like to do.
Well, also, you know, trying to kill a rattlesnake yourself, if you're not like an expert in snakes, is probably a good way to get your ass bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So the group tries to burn the body, but they're attacked by a bunch of snakes. In the meantime, Deborah again attempts to kidnap Kara, but this time she is successful and takes her from the hospital to the mines where Desjardins had murdered his other victims.
They explained this, that where the mine was had something to do with Native Americans.
Yeah, man. I'm surprised they didn't just call them an Indian burial ground.
That might have been what it was.
Well, no. I'm saying that I'm surprised they didn't use the phrase, the old Indian burial ground.
I think they might have, but it was like glossed over quickly.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they would have at least said the Native American burial ground.
I think they were talking about the natives thing, and then I think they mentioned the mine and they just say, "Oh, it used to be a burial ground for them."
Yeah. This fucking movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, she takes Kara to where Desjardins had murdered his other victims in the mines. While this happens, she is taking on more and more snake-like qualities, spitting venom, biting security guards in a snake-like manner, molting her skin. I did think this was cool when the way she gets out of her bed is just sloughing off the skin on her hand. That was, weirdly enough, one of my favorite parts of this movie.
Yeah.
There's just something so about it on so many levels.
Yeah.
And then the guard that she bites dies of what appears to be venom poisoning. Sheriff Tweed follows Deborah and Kara, but she gets her ass killed. You know, we only mention her like real briefly here. She's actually a fairly big part of the movie and seems to have some level of kinship with...
Well, like I said, she's originally there just to get her documentary made.
No. Sheriff Tweed.
Oh, not really. Kinda.
She seems to be friends with Sarah. Like not necessarily.
Yeah, they
like,
probably grew up together.
Yeah. I had to rewind. I did actually rewind it at one point because I was like, wait, when Sarah talks about kissing that girl in the garage, was it the sheriff? And it wasn't. It was just some random name. But for a minute there, I was wondering. But I'll get into why I was wondering that in a second. Sheriff Tweed is killed. Mia and Sarah go into the mine after hearing the sheriff being attacked. They find Deborah with the child, and Deborah has unhinged her jaw like a snake and is working on swallowing Kara whole, which I found funny. My first high school death metal band had a song called Swallowing Children Whole. Really dumb, but that was immediately what came to mind when I saw this. Gave me a chuckle.
A lot of people find this scene super freaky.
I mean, it's very well done and is pretty gross.
Yeah.
Katie happened to walk in just in time for this scene and was like, "What the fuck?" Good times. The Swallowing Children whole song was really stupid.
I'm sure.
Yeah. It was a really dumb band. I got into metal a little bit later, kind of as a way to like make this band better. But they were my friends. They had a band. I had recently decided that I wanted to be a musician, so I just joined the band.
Yeah.
And we were ridiculous, but like I didn't know that we were bad because at the time death metal did sound like noise to me.
Sure.
I hadn't gotten that acquired taste yet. So, Deborah unhinges her jaw just like a snake. She's trying to swallow Kara whole. And while this happens, Sarah and what is left of the camera crew finally succeed in burning the corpse of Desjardins and seemingly break the smell.
That bitch been stinking the whole time.
I mean, she's been molting skin.
Yeah.
You know, she's got that snake stank. You had snakes. They smell a little weird. Yeah. I mean,
it's just when you got to clean their cage.
Yeah, it's true.
Poop.
As the book says, everything poops.
Oh.
They finally burn the corpse, seemingly breaking the spell over Deborah, releasing her. We then see news reports saying that Deborah was deemed unfit to stand trial for the murders and the kidnapping. And then we see a follow-up news story showing that Kara has gone into remission and is celebrating her 10th birthday. As the reporter finishes the story, she gives a really creepy smile at the camera, showing that she might now be possessed. The ritual may have worked.
Oh, she doesn't just say that. She says something.
Well, she says something along the lines of
like she has plans.
He asks her what she plans to do with her life, and that's when she gives this creepy smile and says, "It's a secret."
Yeah. So
I'm guessing it has to do with snakes, though.
Well, so this is the confusing part about this movie, like in their own lore, is that did Deborah kill Kara? Because the whole point is that the ritual, he had to kill 4 girls to have eternal life.
5.
Okay, well, yeah, 5.
But yeah.
But he failed because they killed him before he could kill Sarah.
Yeah.
So, but now it seems like it succeeded. So does that mean, did Kara die and then he took over her body?
Well,
because it seems like they were stopped. So that means he didn't fix the ritual.
Well, so I think that he did kill her, and actually, I think that it may have happened earlier than we think, because when security is trying to stop him.
No, I know. I figured she was under some sort of spell or something.
Yeah.
Because she's just like listening to Deborah.
Yeah, well, she's not only listening to Deborah, but she's repeating this whole, "Don't take him. He's a nice man. He's going to," like, she's repeating the stuff that Deborah was saying in French.
Yeah, maybe. I thought she was just like, I don't know, under a spell. The other thing is, dude, this fucking hospital. Okay, Deborah already escapes and kidnaps this little girl, and then they bring them back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I just am like, I get it's a small town. I'm like, they're still in the same hospital. I'm like, are the cops not guarding the little girl? I just feel like if I was these parents, it's not going to just be like, oh, well, same crazy lady is in this, like, a couple doors down, and we're just going to leave our daughter here.
Oh, yeah, fuck no. I mean, one would assume this being a small town, maybe they got nowhere else to go. But,
I know, but as I said, but
yeah.
Cops or something, parents.
Somebody should be guarding. Somebody should be stationed at her door.
Yeah, she's already been kidnapped once.
There's also, just speaking of the hospital.
Yeah.
There is another trope that drives me fucking crazy in, like, how often it appears in horror movies. What hospital has just an abandoned wing? Because if you watch horror, you'd assume it's all of them. But like, you know, I realize that I'm not a filmmaker, and, you know, maybe things are just very specific here in sunny California. But as far as I know, nobody's got enough fucking beds.
Yeah.
Like, there is this whole thing where it's hard to actually get into a hospital these days because there simply aren't enough beds. And you're telling me that in the mystical world of horror, everybody just has, like, a wing, an entire fucking wing that they were just like, oh, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's so contrived, and I get irritated every time it's one of those things that shouldn't be a big deal, but immediately takes me out of a movie every time I see it. Something else that I wanted to talk about was Sarah. So Sarah is very heavily implied to be a lesbian in this.
It's not implied. It's
pretty well stated.
Yeah.
There's this tension between Deborah and Sarah. Sarah clearly has some resentment towards Deborah because she was sent off to finishing school.
Once she saw her kissing another girl.
Right. But in reality, it's probably part of the whole, you know, save her from Desjardins thing.
Yeah, that could be true. But even, like, as an adult, she's giving her, like, shit for some of her lesbian tendencies.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't like the way she dresses.
Right.
She even mentions how she knows she doesn't like guys and, like, says it in a disgusted way.
True. So one thing that I did find amusing, but, like, not in a good way exactly, is the amount of lesbian stereotypes they cram into this movie.
Yeah.
She mentions not owning a single blouse, fine. She's constantly wearing flannel, which is a stereotype. When the sheriff like asks if there's anything she can do to help, she says, "You could move in," which is a stereotype about lesbians. And the whole moving in, like,
but it's her mom.
No, she's talking to the sheriff. The daughter is talking to the sheriff.
Yeah.
And the sheriff is like, "Let me know if I can do anything to help." And she's like, "You can move in with us," because she's living there.
Well, no, she isn't. She's just staying there because she's on the phone with her girlfriend.
Which she is. And while she's on the phone, she gives another stereotype and says, "I'm picking up the U-Haul."
Oh.
Honestly, I didn't know about most of these stereotypes until, like, I don't know, a few years ago. And I learned most of them from Katie. In that whole thing, there was that one week that I went to 5 concerts in 4 days that I always talk about as like one of the best weeks ever. One of those was Katie and I went to go see Tegan and Sarah.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything about them except they did that Walking with a Ghost song that I really like. And, and we were in line. I think we were in like a merch line, or we were in some line, and I was looking around and I made a comment like, "Man, everybody here is wearing flannel." And Katie and a few people next to us just started laughing hella hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? What did I say? Because I don't know anything about Tegan and Sarah. I was thinking like maybe this was like a grunge revival band or something.
Sure.
Then she was also like, "Did you also notice that it's basically only women here?"
Yeah.
And that was how I found out about that. And then I don't remember how I found out about all these other stereotypes, but I always thought it was funny, like the U-Haul thing. Like, why is that
because lesbians tend to move in with each other right away.
Is that true too?
Yes.
Like, is that a real thing?
Yeah. No, so even funny. So I watched this comedian. Fuck, I don't remember her last name. Her name's Jessica, which doesn't help. But she's gay.
I figured that's why you were bringing her up.
Here, let me. Okay. Her name is Jessica Curson, and she's gay, and she does a lot of crowd work. And there's a clip of her where she's talking. She's like, "Oh, you guys are lesbians? How long have you guys been together?" And they're like, 3 months. She's like, "Oh, are you guys already living together?" They're like, "We're already married."
You know what? I think you showed me this.
Yeah, and she's just like, because it is a stereotype.
Yeah, no, I have seen this, and it was either you or Katie showed it to me.
All right, so I will say I recommended this movie to be on here, and I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I will say I don't think it holds up. I don't think it's terrible in any way. It's decent. But I think one of the main reasons, because a lot of people love this movie or say how good it is. Like, a lot of people revere this movie. And I think the reason is because, one, this came out at a time when found footage was like really just, there's so many of them, and they're always just cheap as hell. And that's why they're made. And
they
they're
all
just
have that Blair Witch scene at the end, which this actually, I don't think does.
No, but this also was one of the first horror movies I saw. Now there's quite a few of them that use Alzheimer's or dementia as a point, using it as like an allegory or whatever. But
plot device.
It makes it more like a human element there, because Alzheimer's disease is fucking scary as hell.
Terrifying.
And like 1 in 13 people get it after like age 65.
When I was in college, I was studying psychology, and I had a major paper that I had to do that I did on Alzheimer's. So it was this huge research paper, and it terrified me so much. I had nightmares just writing that shit. And I think the thing that scared me the most was understanding that the way the brain works, any human who lives long enough is going to get it.
No, that's not true.
No, if I'm not saying like everybody's going to get it by the time they're 100, but the way the brain deteriorates, the way the plaques build up, the way the dendrites get all fucked up, were we to somehow live to like 150, everybody probably would get it.
Well, we don't know enough about this. We don't even specifically know if the plaques are causing it. That's just the leading theory hypothesis. Because once you get over 85, it's 1 in 3 people get it.
But that's fucking terrifying.
That is. And it's not hereditary, which a lot of people think it is. 99% of cases don't have any family history of it. You know what I really hate about that particular number is the thought of dying before 85 is pretty scary in my opinion.
But then you read something like that and you're like, well, I don't think I want to live past it either.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to.
My dad's close to 80 and he's fine. I don't know.
But I'm pretty sure your dad does a lot of stuff to keep himself mentally sharp.
Sure.
Like, he strikes me as a big reader and all that.
Yeah, both my parents are big readers.
Yeah.
It actually annoys me about Craven's parents. Well, many things. But one of the things is, like, at 65, they act like they can't do anything. And I'm like, dude, if they're being like that now, they're like, we can barely go on a walk around the block. I'm like, dude, you are going to be decrepit.
Yeah.
No. Like, that's a choice. That's not because you're just getting old. You're choosing just to, like, waste away, which is so frustrating.
Dude, abso-fucking-lutely not. I tell you, I am a heavy dude.
Yeah.
If I'm 65 and I'm, like, behaving like this, just fucking shoot me because I have given up. Yeah. And there's no excuse for that. Yeah. I don't, unless you're, like, fucking crippled in an accident or something, there's no reason to be like, oh, I can't leave the house at 65. My mom and her partner are, well, I don't know their actual ages, but I know they're retired.
Yeah.
My mom was one of those people who is like, a woman never tells her age. Yeah. I rolled my eyes like that as well.
My mom never told me her age. I could figure it out because I know that she's 3 years younger than my dad, and I knew how old my dad was.
Well, I mean, I was able to figure it out, but I'm not going to say it because she doesn't going to tell me. I'm not going to blurt it out on the podcast. Sure. But, they are retired. They still do shit all the fucking time.
Because that also is the age where the whole term use it or lose it comes from.
Yeah. Like some months ago, we had to like go and get a bunch of shit out from underneath their house. And it's not like they were just sitting there in the fucking lawn chairs being like, oh, go do this. Nah, man, they were in there fucking helping.
Yeah.
They've done a ton of landscaping in that place. The house honestly looks very different from when I grew up because they're doing shit all the time. So yeah, man, don't just fucking give up on life once you hit 65. You worked all those years just so you could lay about and not enjoy anything and fucking, I don't know. You know what? I'm not kidding.
But anyways, so you have the human element of the Alzheimer's and how scary that is. But the whole lesbian thing I think is also important in another element because it's not this mother and daughter that like have a great fucking relationship and just love each other.
No, there's so much resentment there.
And I think there's an added struggle of dealing with like Alzheimer's or somebody with it because it's somebody you do have love for and you do love, but you've also like, we don't know when the last time they spoke. They clearly have not like been close for like their entire lives, if have ever even been spoken like recently that much. We don't know like the details.
Yeah.
But it's like you're trying to care for somebody that's frustrating because they're having like all these health problems. Because it is as heartbreaking as it is. It's very, I've never dealt with it personally, but just talking to other people who have and like thinking, it's very frustrating because you're dealing with somebody who like doesn't know what's going on like sometimes, and they can be violent as they show in this movie. They can, for different reasons, but they can be violent. They can just be, there's lots of difficulty dealing with like people that are in advanced stages. And then when you also have the combined thing of like, you never had a close relationship to begin with, but you do love them. So there's elements to this movie that I do think are well done, and especially for the time it came out, made it seem like refreshing for found footage. Now, I don't think it holds up today, but for the time it came out, I do think it was doing something like new for a found footage.
I think that I would have liked it more if I had watched it back then.
Yeah.
It's been on my watch list for literally a decade.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies that every time I'm scanning through whatever service I'm looking through, I'm always like, yeah, I should really watch this. Yeah, I hear good things.
Yeah.
Let me see what else real quick.
I would say the best part is the actual human element of it.
Yeah, I agree. I also will say this did come out at a time when found footage was a huge thing. This
is when like people were already like sick of found footage,
but it was still happening.
Yeah, but then this came out and people were like, no, this one's actually like good. Did it come out the same time as Above, So Below? Because that one was also
they were both 2014.
I think these were both two movies that there were like people that if they were like, oh, if you hate found footage, watch these.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, they're the first found footage movies I think I've ever seen where there isn't that stupid Blair Witch monologue at the end.
Yeah.
You all know the one. I'm going to talk into the camera and express all my regrets and I'm so scared. Fuck out of here with that shit.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I get it. I get it. Found footage was big for a while.
Because cheap.
It's easy, but like, you know what? You're already going the cheap and easy route. Maybe don't fucking copy every goddamn scene.
Sure. So both these movies do a good job where they try to have like a story element in different ways that take it further than just like, ooh, creepy stuff.
Yeah. But that being said, I don't think it lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
And when
like
I say that,
even me rewatching it, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
It's not as good as I remember.
And when I say that, I'm not saying that like it was this huge movie. After 10 years of always hearing that it's really good.
It got dropped on Netflix just randomly and nobody had heard about it. And that's one of the reasons too that it blew up. Because it was like, everyone was like, where the fuck did this movie come from?
Yeah.
And then yeah.
Similarly to As Above, So Below, there's a lot to like about it. I don't think that it is mind-blowing, particularly not in 2024.
Yeah.
But it's worth a watch.
I think As Above, So Below is clearly the better movie.
I think so,
and
too.
It's fun to watch.
Yes. That's one of the things that I will definitely give to that.
And it has intense moments.
It's more intense. It's more fun. And, and again, honestly, I also think I would have liked this movie if they had just kept the question open longer.
Sure.
I feel like
that makes sense.
I feel like they gave away the supernatural aspect too early. It would have been really fucking cool if they had actually had the balls to not have it be supernatural at the end. I don't think that would necessarily be the right way to go.
Yeah, because I think that would come off as too exploitative. Like you're almost mocking people with that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that whenever there's a movie where there's like a good solid question of is it supernatural or isn't, it almost always is.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe this isn't the movie to do that with, but yeah, I don't think we should have known for sure that it was supernatural until the third act.
Yeah, I also think there's just like, you could still have the magic element. There's no reason for it to be Native American based. Just, you found a black book of magic. We don't need to like be specific.
Yeah.
Unless it's a real thing based in like some mythology, I don't think you need to like, state some culture and be like, ugh.
even if there is, how many cultures had some kind of ritual sacrifice? You don't need to bring any one of them into it.
Sure.
You can.
I'm just saying, if you're trying to make a movie about an actual like creepy thing and like folklore stuff, sure, go ahead. But just adding something for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if the point was to actually explore the Monacan thing, but maybe include more of a Monacan.
Sure.
Maybe bring an actual Native American onto production.
Yeah,
just a thought.
But don't do what Antlers did also with the Wendigo, where they literally just talk to a Native American. He goes, the Wendigo, and then you never see him again.
Oh, I knew that movie was going to disappoint me the minute I started to suspect it was the Wendigo.
Man, I was really looking forward to that movie, and then it got delayed for a long time because of the pandemic, not because of like filming stuff.
And I'm just gonna say this here: I don't think I ever want to do an episode. You know what? We should. We like too many of these movies. We should do something we don't like. That I don't think I've ever been so let down by a horror movie as Antlers. It looked amazing, and it was crap.
Yeah.
So, boo to Antlers. Now we got to do that just so we could like shred it. We should find more movies that we hate that we can put on here.
Yeah.
We're too positive.
I hate a lot of movies.
Yeah. You know what? As much as I love horror, there's a lot of trash you got to wade through. Yeah, fucking shit, man. Now I'm just like angry about Antlers again. Who would we recommend this for? I would say similar to As Above, So Below, if you are still into the whole found footage thing. And you
because there's some people that
sick of it,
are just a fan of it. That's their favorite movies.
Despite my misgivings about how they handled some things and a little bit about wasted potential, it does take a relatively original approach.
Yeah, it's not a terrible movie.
No, it's not terrible. Just like I said, I feel like I would have liked it more if I had watched it when it came out and if I hadn't had a decade of people telling me that it was great.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're into that sort of thing, check it out.
Yeah. All right.
Fun stuff. I think that's about it.
Yep.
Any last things you would like to add on either of these movies?
No.
Oh, I was going to mention this. I do find it funny that there's a couple points where they like slip in some subliminal images, particularly when something goes wrong with the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice them?
I'm not sure what you're talking about at the moment. No.
So like when they're trying to burn the body and they're fighting all the snakes and there's that sort of like not explosion, but explosion.
Uh-huh.
The camera like goes all glitchy for a moment. And you can see this icon of snakes.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
themselves.
Uh-huh.
And there's another scene. I don't remember what happens, but the camera glitches out for a second, and you see like this really fucked up face.
Yeah.
That I'm pretty sure is supposed to be Desjardins unhooking his jaw and swallowing you.
Oh.
Whenever this comes out, I'll pop the pictures I took of those things up onto Instagram.
Sure.
The face is one of those things that really quick, it looks super creepy, but I'm also not 100% sure what the deal is with it, but I think it's supposed to be him with his jaw. That sounds right. Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for Streaming Screams. Jessica, play us off.
Streaming Screams.